My husband is always late to everything, so I finally stopped getting mad. My husband Peter is chronically late to literally everything that involves me. Dinner with my parents, 40 minutes late. My sister's wedding. We missed the ceremony entirely because he just needed 5 more minutes to fix his hair. But here's what makes my blood boil. When it's his friends, he's suddenly the most punctual person alive. His buddy Andrew texts about meeting for drinks. Peter's grabbing his keys before the message even sends. The double standard was eating me alive, but Peter would just shrug and say I was being dramatic whenever I brought it up. Your friends are more understanding, he'd say. Like that made it okay to disrespect everyone I cared about. 3 weeks ago was my absolute breaking point. My best friend Claire was in town for one night only. She'd just gotten engaged and wanted to celebrate with me before flying back to Seattle. We had reservations at this amazing rooftop place at 8 p.m. I was so excited to hear all the proposal details and see her ring. At 7:45, Peter was still sprawled on the couch in his pajamas, scrolling TikTok. Babe, we need to go now, I said, panic creeping into my voice. He didn't even look up. Claire will wait. She always does. At 8:15, he finally started getting ready. Stop stressing. You're giving me anxiety, he snapped when I kept checking the time. We arrived at 9:30. Claire was sitting alone at the bar, checking her phone. Her face lit up when she saw me, but I could tell she was hurt. I was worried something happened, she said. The kitchen was already closing. We couldn't even order food. She left an hour later to catch her early flight, and I never got to properly celebrate with her. That night, I decided something had to change. Fast forward to last Saturday. Peter's childhood best friend, Alex, was flying back to Chicago for literally one night before moving to London permanently for his new job. They'd been planning this goodbye for months. It was all Peter could talk about. I can't believe this is it, he kept saying. 20 years of friendship, and we get one last night. They were meeting at Murphy's Pub at 8 p.m. sharp. Alex had specifically mentioned he could only stay until 10 o'clock because of his early morning international flight. Peter had even taken the day off work to mentally prepare for saying goodbye. At 7:50, Peter was still in the shower. At 8:05, he was blow-drying his hair. At 8:20, he was trying on different shirts, asking me which one looked better. Usually, I'd be pacing the hallway, practically dragging him out the door, setting timers, reminding him every 5 minutes. But not this time. I sat on the couch, painting my nails, watching him move in slow motion. Aren't you going to tell me to hurry up? He asked, confused by my calmness. Nope, I said sweetly. Take all the time you need, honey. At 8:45, he was finally ready. See, we're fine, he said smugly. I told you there was no rush. We got to Murphy's at 9:35. Peter practically sprinted inside, scanning the crowded bar for Alex's familiar face. I followed slowly, already knowing what we'd find. Empty table, no Alex. Peter's face went white as he called Alex's phone. Straight to voicemail. He tried texting. No response. Finally, he called Alex's girlfriend, Christine. Peter. Christine sounded surprised. Alex left 20 minutes ago. He waited as long as he could, but his Uber to the airport was already there. He was really hoping you'd make it on time. Just this once. His flight board's in an hour. I watched my husband's face crumble in real time. His hands were shaking as he ended the call. 20 years of friendship, and their final goodbye was a missed connection. Why didn't you remind me? He turned on me, his voice breaking with rage and desperation. You knew how important this was. You just sat there while I got ready. This is your fault. My fault? I stood up calmly. Peter, when have I ever not reminded you? When have I ever not stressed myself sick trying to get you out the door on time? Claire's celebration, my work party, my sister's wedding. You never even apologized for any of them. Peter's hands were shaking. Because you always forgave me anyway. How many times have you been late to Andrew this year? I asked suddenly. He blinked, confused. What? Just answer. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched. I watched the realization hit him. He literally couldn't remember being late to Andrew even once. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his whole face changed. I have to go. He was already heading for the door. Peter, what? My mom just texted. She's at the hospital. She fell hours ago and has been trying to call me. The words hung in the air for a second before he was out the door, car keys jangling in his hand. I stood there in Murphy's, surrounded by the Friday night noise. People laughing, glasses clinking, a basketball game playing on the TV above the bar. The bartender was wiping down the counter, giving me these sympathetic looks like he'd witnessed the whole thing. I pulled out my phone and saw I had a missed call from Joan, Peter's mom, from about 2 hours ago. She'd called me when she couldn't reach him. My stomach twisted. I got in my car and drove to Northwestern Memorial. The whole way there, I kept thinking about Joan lying somewhere hurt, calling her son over and over, and Peter in our bathroom perfecting his hair like he was going to a photo shoot. The city lights blurred past my window. Friday night traffic was thick, people heading out for dates and dinner, living their normal lives while my world was falling apart in slow motion. When I got to the ER, I found Peter in the waiting area, bouncing his leg like he does when he's anxious. His face was pale, hands clasped between his knees. They're setting her hip now, he said without looking at me. Broken in 2 places. She fell down the basement stairs. How long ago? I asked, even though I already knew the answer would destroy me. He swallowed hard. Around 6:30. She called me 14 times. It was past 10 o'clock now. I did the math. Joan had been hurt for over 3.5 hours, lying on a concrete basement floor, in pain, calling her son who was too busy styling his hair to answer. The fluorescent hospital lights made everything look harsh and unforgiving. A kid was crying somewhere down the hall. The smell of antiseptic burned my nose. A nurse came out and said we could see her. Peter jumped up immediately, and I followed him down the sterile corridor. Our footsteps echoed. When we got to the room, Joan was propped up in bed, her leg in a temporary brace, her face gray with pain and exhaustion. But when she saw Peter, her expression did something I'd never seen before. It went cold, hard. She looked at Peter like he was a stranger who'd just cut in front of her in line at the grocery store. "I called you 14 times, she said. Her voice was flat, completely empty of the usual warmth she had for her only son. Peter rushed to her bedside, reaching for her hand. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was getting ready to see Alex and I didn't hear my phone and—" "I know," Joan interrupted, pulling her hand away. "I stopped calling after 6 because I finally realized what I was doing. I was teaching you my emergencies don't matter either." The room went quiet except for the beeping of Joan's monitors and the hiss of oxygen from the wall unit. Peter opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His eyes were wide, confused, like she'd just spoken to him in a foreign language. "Mom, please, I didn't mean—" "Peter, leave," Joan said, her voice like ice. "I want to talk to your wife alone." "What?" "No, Mom, I just got here. Now." I'd never heard Joan use that tone. Not once in the 6 years I'd known her. She'd always been soft-spoken, accommodating, the type who apologized when other people bumped into her. Peter looked at me like I was supposed to fix this, the way I always fix things for him. I just stood there, my purse still on my shoulder, saying nothing. He left, his footsteps heavy in the hallway, and I heard him slump against the wall outside. Joan waited until the door clicked shut completely. Then she looked at me with eyes that were exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with pain medication or a broken hip. "I need you to know something," she said, her voice softer now but still firm. "When I was lying on that basement floor, I thought about calling one more time. After the 6th call went to voicemail, I just stopped." She shifted in the bed, wincing, and I moved to help her, but she waved me off. I lay there for 90 minutes, choosing to wait for my neighbor to come home from her book club rather than call Peter a 15th time. "Joan, let me finish, honey." Her hand found mine, cold and papery. "I've enabled this for 30 years. I watched him do it to you and said nothing because I did the same thing with his father. Robert was late to everything too. Late to my mother's funeral, late to Peter's birth. I was in active labor and he was just finishing up a poker game with his buddies." She took a shaky breath, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. But lying on those stairs, staring at the ceiling, feeling my hips screaming in pain, I decided I'd rather break my hip than teach him one more time that someone will always wait, that his time is more valuable than mine, than yours. "You shouldn't have had to make that choice," I said, and I was crying now too. "No, I shouldn't have, but I did. And you know what the worst part was?" She squeezed my hand harder. "When I stopped calling, I felt relieved, like I'd finally stood up for myself, even though I was lying on a basement floor with a broken hip." "Isn't that insane?" "You're young enough to start over," Joan continued. "I wasted decades making excuses, telling myself it was just how Robert was wired, that love meant accepting people's flaws. But this isn't a flaw, it's a choice. Every single time, it's a choice about who matters." I didn't know what to say. Joan had always seemed so content, so happy in her marriage before Robert died 3 years ago. I'd never known she'd felt this way. "Don't do what I did," she said. "Don't wait 30 years to realize your time has value too." I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. It was almost midnight. The streets were quieter now, just a few cars here and there, people heading home from bars or late shifts. When I walked into our apartment, Peter was on the couch with his phone, obsessively typing and deleting messages. His laptop was open to Expedia, flight search results to London filling the screen. "I'm flying to London next week," he announced without looking up. "I'll apologize to Alex in person. I'll make him understand it was just bad timing." "Bad timing?" I repeated, setting my purse down slowly. "Peter, you had 4 hours to get ready." He waved his hand dismissively, still scrolling through flights. "Alex knows I'm always running late. He's being dramatic about this. 20 years of friendship and he can't forgive me for one mistake?" I sat down across from him on the armchair, really looked at him. His hair was still perfect from all that time he'd spent on it, not a strand out of place. "Why didn't you just leave on time tonight?" He finally looked up from his phone, annoyed. "Because I didn't think it mattered that much. Alex knows how I am. He should have waited longer." "He waited almost an hour and a half, Peter. He had a flight to catch." "Whatever. I'll fix it when I see him." "And your mom? When she was calling you 14 times? His face darkened. "That's not fair. I didn't know she was hurt. How was I supposed to know? You didn't answer. You didn't even look at your phone because you were too busy making sure your hair looked perfect for a friend you ended up missing anyway." "Jesus Christ, why is everyone attacking me?" Peter stood up, started pacing. "I made a mistake, okay? People make mistakes. Mom will forgive me. Alex will forgive me. Everyone will calm down and realize they're overreacting." I watched him pace, watched him convince himself that this would all blow over like it always did. "When was the last time you were late meeting Andrew?" I asked quietly. He stopped mid-step, turned to look at me, opened his mouth, closed it. I watched his face as he actually tried to remember. His eyes went distant, scanning through memories. The silence stretched for a full minute. I don't know. I don't think I have been." "You haven't. Not once in the 5 years I've known you." "So what? What's your point? Why does Andrew get punctuality but I get excuses?" His jaw tightened. I could see him trying to come up with an answer that didn't make him sound like a complete asshole. "Andrew wouldn't put up with it," he finally said. The words just came out. Simple, honest, devastating. "So you're saying you respect people based on whether they'll tolerate disrespect?" I said slowly, letting each word sink in. "And because I've tolerated it, I don't deserve your respect." "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant, Peter." He ran his hands through his hair, messing it up for the first time all night. "Look, I'll do better, okay? I'll set more alarms or something. I'll try harder. He said it like he was offering to pick up milk on the way home. Like this was a minor inconvenience he could fix with a phone app and a half-hearted promise. The next morning, Peter got up early. He actually set an alarm which shocked me awake at 7:30. I'm going to see Mom, he announced, pulling on jeans and a clean shirt. Gonna smooth this over. He said it with complete confidence. That familiar certainty that everything could be fixed with a quick apology and maybe some flowers from the hospital gift shop. I didn't say anything. Just drank my coffee and watched him leave. Watched him grab his wallet and keys with purpose, like a man on a mission. He was back 30 minutes later. I was still in my pajamas, scrolling through my phone when he walked in. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. The hospital won't let me in, he said, his voice small and confused. They said Mom left explicit instructions. I'm not allowed in her room. He looked genuinely shocked, like someone had just told him the sky was green and grass was blue. She's never refused to see me before. Never. Not when I forgot her birthday. Not when I missed her retirement party. Never. Maybe she's finally as tired of waiting as I am, I said. Peter's eyes narrowed. You did this. You turned her against me. What did you say to her last night? I didn't say anything, Peter. I listened while your mother told me about lying on her basement floor for 90 minutes. Choosing to wait for a neighbor instead of calling you a 15th time because she didn't want to teach you one more time that her emergencies don't matter. She's being ridiculous. She's on pain meds. She's not thinking straight. She's thinking clearly for the first time in 30 years. Peter grabbed his keys again. I'm going back. They can't keep me from my own mother. I'll talk to the nurses. I'll talk to her doctor. They can and they will because she asked them to. He stood there in our living room, keys in hand, looking completely lost. This wasn't how things worked in Peter's world. People got mad, sure, but then he apologized with that boyish charm, that sheepish smile, and they forgave him. Life continued. The idea that someone might actually enforce a boundary, might actually refuse to see him, was completely foreign to him. While Peter spent the rest of the day calling the hospital and getting nowhere, I could hear him from the bedroom, his voice getting increasingly frustrated with each call. I did something I'd been avoiding. I went to our home office and pulled out the old calendars I'd kept for the past 5 years. I'm the kind of person who writes everything down. Appointments, plans, what actually happened versus what was supposed to happen. I started going through them, page by page. There it was. Years of documentation that I hadn't really looked at as a whole before. My sister's baby shower, planned 2:00 p.m., arrived 3:40 p.m., circled in red pen. My college roommate's going away party before she moved to Portland, planned 7:00 p.m., arrived 8:55 p.m. My dad's 60th birthday dinner, planned 6:30 p.m., arrived 8:10 p.m., missed dinner entirely, only caught dessert. Page after page of my life, measured in how long I'd waited, how many times I checked my phone, made excuses to people who were asking where we were, felt my chest tighten with embarrassment and frustration. Then I checked Peter's calendar, which he mostly used for work stuff and his own plans. His friend group's Super Bowl party, arrived 5:55 p.m. for a 6:00 p.m. start. Andrew's wedding 2 years ago, arrived 2:40 p.m. for a 3:00 p.m. ceremony, early enough to chat with people beforehand. His work meetings, always on time, often early. A project presentation he'd stressed about for weeks last year, arrived 8:45 a.m. for a 9:00 a.m. start. His weekly poker night with the guys, consistently on time, sometimes even offering to arrive early to help set up. I spread the calendars out on the desk like evidence at a crime scene. 5 years of proof that my husband was completely, totally capable of being on time. He just chose not to be. For me. Peter came home that evening defeated from another rejected attempt to see Joan. He'd driven to the hospital twice more, apparently, and both times the nurses had turned him away. He found me at the desk, surrounded by open calendars, sticky notes, my handwriting marking patterns I'd never wanted to see. What are you doing? He asked, his voice wary. I turned one calendar around so he could see it. Your arrival time to Andrew's promotion dinner last March. 7:58 for an 8:00 reservation. 2 minutes early. I turned another. My arrival time to my work's holiday party in December, where I was supposed to give a speech as the new department head. 9:15 for a 7:30 start. I had to give my speech after dessert was served, Peter. My boss's wife had already left. His face went red. Are you seriously going through old calendars to prove a point? You've been on time to every single one of Andrew's events for 5 years. Every single one. I stood up, my legs stiff from sitting. But you've been late to 83% of mine. I counted. Literally sat here and counted. This is insane. What's insane is that I didn't see it sooner. What's insane is that I kept making excuses for you when the proof was right here the whole time. Peter slumped into the desk chair, and for a long moment, he just sat there staring at the calendars like they were written in a language he couldn't understand. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Smaller, stripped of the defensive anger. You want to know the truth? I waited, my heart pounding. Being late to your stuff, it makes me feel like I have some power in this relationship. My stomach dropped. What? Your career is better than mine. You make more money. Like, significantly more. You got promoted twice in the time I've been at the same position. Your friends actually like you, not just tolerate you. They call you to hang out. They want your advice. They plan things around your schedule. He wouldn't look at me. You're good at everything you try. Naturally good. You picked up tennis last year, and within 3 months you were better than me, and I've been playing since high school. So this was never about time management. No, the word hung there. It was about reminding you that I matter, that you can't just steamroll through life being perfect at everything while I'm just He gestured vaguely at himself. Average. The guy who peaked in college and has been coasting ever since. This was about power, I said, and I felt numb. Completely numb. I guess, yeah, making you wait is the one thing where I'm in control, where you have to accommodate me for once instead of me always feeling like I'm trying to catch up to you. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those apologies over the years, all the, I'm sorry babe, I lost track of time, all the, I didn't realize how late it was, lies. Deliberate, calculated lies. I want you to leave, I said. Peter's head snapped up. What? I want you out of this house. You're overreacting. This is just like you, blowing everything out of proportion. Your mother is in a hospital bed and won't see you. Your best friend of 20 years blocked your number. When exactly do you think people are going to start forgiving you again? Peter stood up, and I saw that familiar confidence slide back onto his face like a mask. They will. They always do. Mom will cool off, Alex will realize he's being dramatic, and you'll calm down, and we'll work through this like we always do. He said it with such certainty, because it had always been true before. Why would this time be different? I couldn't sleep that night. Peter took the guest room. I made him, basically blocked the bedroom door until he got the message, and I lay in our bed thinking about Joan's words, about her lying on that basement floor, choosing pain over making that 15th call. Around 2 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart jumped. Hello? Hi, this is Northwestern Memorial Hospital calling about Joan Hendricks. Are you listed as her emergency contact? My heart stopped. Yes. Is she okay? Mrs. Hendricks is stable, but she asked us to call you. She said it was important and couldn't wait until morning. Can I transfer you to her room? Yes, please, of course. The hold music was some soft jazz that felt completely wrong for the panic coursing through me. Then Joan's voice came on, groggy but determined. Honey, I'm sorry to wake you. I didn't want to wait until morning. I need you to understand why I chose not to call Peter that 15th time. Joan, you should rest. When I was on that floor, I thought about calling again. Just once more. Maybe he'd answer. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe if I told him I was really hurt, he'd actually pick up. She took a ragged breath. But then I pictured you, sitting alone at restaurants, waiting at events, making excuses to your family for why your husband couldn't be bothered to show up on time, making yourself smaller so he could feel bigger. I was crying now, quiet tears in the dark bedroom. And I realized if I called him again, I'd be telling you to keep waiting too. I'd be showing you that this is what love looks like, accepting crumbs of respect and calling it a feast. I chose the pain, Joan said, and her voice cracked. I chose to lie there in agony because you deserve better than what I taught him you should accept. I taught my son that women will always wait, that our time doesn't matter, that we'll forgive anything if he just flashes that smile and says sorry. And I'm so sorry I did that to you. It's not your fault. It is. I enabled his father for 40 years. I watched Robert make me wait and I smiled and forgave him every time because that's what good wives did. And Peter learned from watching us. He learned that this is acceptable, but it's not. It never was. We talked for another 20 minutes before the nurse came and said Joan needed to rest. I lay back down but didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, thinking about patterns and choices, and how love isn't supposed to feel like being continuously disrespected. The next day, I got a message request on Instagram from someone named Christine. Hi, I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out. I'm Alex's girlfriend. Peter's been messaging Alex nonstop since Saturday night, and Alex is really struggling with it. I found you through Alex's tagged photos. I hope this isn't weird. I called her immediately. She answered on the first ring. Thank you for talking to me, Christine said. She had a nice voice, warm. Alex has been a wreck since that night. He thinks he did something wrong, that he somehow ruined their friendship. He can't stop replaying their last conversation, looking for what he said that made Peter not show up. Peter was just late, I said. That's it. No fight, no drama. He took too long getting ready. I know. Peter's messages have been saying that, sorry man, lost track of time, you know how I am. But Alex doesn't understand that. He keeps saying Peter's never missed anything important before. Christine paused. He cried on the plane, like, actually sobbed, about losing Peter, about moving to London without fixing whatever went wrong. Meanwhile, Peter couldn't be bothered to be on time for his last night in the country. What kind of friend is that? I thought about 20 years of friendship, destroyed because Peter needed an extra 40 minutes to make sure his hair had the right amount of product in it. Can I tell Alex something? I asked. Please. He needs to hear something that makes sense because right now he's blaming himself. Tell him this wasn't about him. Tell him Peter makes everyone wait. His wife, his mother, everyone who isn't part of his boys' club. Tell him Peter missed his own mother's emergency because he was getting ready for their meetup. And tell him I'm sorry my husband hurt someone who actually deserved his time. Christine was quiet for a moment. His mom was hurt? And he didn't answer? Broken hip, 14 calls. He didn't pick up once. Oh my God. Yeah. When I showed Peter the message thread that evening, I'd screenshotted it because I knew he'd need to see it to believe it. He barely glanced at it. Just scrolled through quickly and handed my phone back. Alex is being dramatic. He'll get over it. I'll fix it when he's back from London in a few months. I stared at him. Peter, Alex isn't coming back. He moved permanently. His job is there now. This wasn't a vacation. Then I'll visit him. London's not that far. I'll fly there, we'll get drinks, I'll explain what happened. He said it like he was talking about driving to the next town over. Not like he was discussing flying to another country to apologize for destroying a 20-year friendship. Do you understand that you didn't just miss saying goodbye? I asked. You destroyed someone who loved you. Jesus, you're as dramatic as he is. Peter went back to his phone, scrolling through something. It was one night. People miss things sometimes. He'll understand when he's had time to think about it rationally. That night, everything changed. Peter's Aunt Linda called around 8 p.m. I could hear her voice through the phone even though Peter had it pressed to his ear. Shrill and upset and panicked. Peter's face went from annoyed to confused to panicked in seconds. What do you mean she had a stroke? He said, already standing up, looking around for his keys like he did that thing with his hands when he was scared. I grabbed my keys off the counter. We got to the hospital in 15 minutes. Peter ran through the halls. Actually ran, taking corners fast enough that nurses called out for him to slow down. I'd never seen him rush for anything involving me, but for this, he was sprinting. But by the time we got to the ICU, the doctors were already coming out. The look on their faces told us everything. It was too late. Joan was gone. A blood clot from the fall, they explained. These things happen sometimes with hip fractures in older patients, especially when treatment is delayed. The clot had traveled to her brain. She'd been laughing with a nurse one minute and then just gone. Peter completely fell apart, sobbing in the hallway, sinking down against the wall, his whole body shaking. I sat beside him because even after everything, he was still my husband, and his mother had just died, and that transcends every other feeling. I never got to apologize, he kept saying through tears that made his whole face red and blotchy. I never got to tell her I understood, that I'd do better. She died thinking I didn't care. She knew, I said quietly. What? He looked at me with swollen eyes. She knew you understood. That's why she wouldn't see you. She didn't want your apology. She wanted you to change. How do you know that? Because she told me. She said she'd rather break her hip than teach you one more time that someone will always wait. Peter put his face in his hands. We sat there on that cold hospital floor for an hour, maybe more. Other people walked past, gave us sympathetic looks, the kind hospital staff give to grieving family members. Finally, we went home because there was nothing else to do. The hospital needed to do their procedures. We'd deal with everything else tomorrow. The funeral was 4 days later. 4 days of Peter walking around like a ghost, not eating, barely sleeping. I wore black, a dress I'd bought years ago for another funeral. Peter wore a wrinkled suit because he'd forgotten to pick it up from the dry cleaners until the morning of the service, and by then it was too late. We were 15 minutes late to his own mother's funeral. I'd told him we needed to leave at 9 o'clock. At 9:10, he was still looking for his shoes. At 9:15, he needed to find his watch. Some people had already left the receiving line by the time we arrived at 9:45. Peter tried to sit next to me during the service. I moved to a different row, squeezed in between some cousins I barely knew. I could feel people staring, whispering. Let them. His Aunt Linda gave the eulogy, talking about Joan's strength, her kindness, her unwavering love for her son despite everything. Then she said something that made everyone shift uncomfortably in their seats, that made the whispers stop and the whole room go silent. Joan made some changes in her final days that surprised many of us, Linda said, her voice tight. Last week, she called her lawyer to her hospital room and updated her will. She left her entire estate to the Children's Hospital Foundation. Peter's head snapped up. I watched confusion and then anger cross his face. His mouth opened slightly. Someone behind me gasped. After the service, at the lawyer's office, a small place that smelled like old paper and coffee, we learned the full extent. Joan's house, her savings account, her life insurance policy, everything to charity. Peter had been completely written out. Not reduced, not given a token amount. Completely removed. The lawyer, an older man with kind eyes, handed Peter an envelope. Your mother left this for you, he said gently. Peter's hands shook as he opened it. I couldn't see what it said, but I watched his face crumble as he read. His eyes got shiny, his jaw clenched, and he had to sit down. Later, in the car, he told me what it said. His voice was hollow, defeated. My son never valued my time in life. He won't profit from my death. Maybe now he'll understand that actions have consequences, even if I'm not here to see him learn that lesson. I love you, Peter. I always will. But I can't reward you for breaking my hip by not answering your phone. I hope you become the man I always believed you could be. I'm sorry I waited until now to show you that you needed to change. Love, Mom. We drove home in silence. Peter didn't even try to defend himself, didn't try to argue that Joan was being cruel or unfair. He just stared out the window like he was seeing the world for the first time and not recognizing any of it. That evening, while Peter was in the shower, he'd been taking long showers, I think because it was the only place he could cry without me seeing, I packed his clothes. Not angrily, not frantically, calmly, methodically. Jeans, shirts, his good shoes, his toiletries, his laptop, his chargers. I put everything in the suitcases we'd bought for our honeymoon to Greece 6 years ago. Blue luggage with little wheels that squeaked. When Peter came home, he'd gone to his friend Andrew's house, probably hoping for sympathy. 30 minutes later than he'd texted he'd be there. I had the bags waiting by the front door. He looked at them and laughed. Actually laughed, this surprised, disbelieving sound. You're not serious. I opened the front door. The evening air rushed in, cool and crisp. October in Chicago. Where am I supposed to go? He asked, the laugh dying. Anywhere but here. And try to be on time. This is my house too. You can't just kick me out. I pay half the mortgage. You're right, I can't. I picked up my own bag, the one I'd packed for myself. Smaller, just enough for a few days. But I can leave. I walked past him, close enough to smell his shampoo, and got in my car. My phone started ringing before I even left the driveway. Peter, calling. I watched it buzz on the passenger seat, watched his name light up the screen. Hubby, with a heart emoji I'd added years ago when things were different. I didn't answer. By the time I got to the Hampton Inn on Route 53, the one near the office park, nothing fancy but clean, I had 40 missed calls. 40. I checked in, went to my room, and turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. I stayed there for 3 days. Peter called, texted, showed up twice banging on the door until hotel security removed him. The second time, the security guard, a kind older black man named Curtis, asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, not yet. On the third day, I called a lawyer. A good one my friend had used for her divorce 2 years ago. Started the paperwork, sat in a clean office with leather chairs and explained everything. The lateness, the disrespect, the admission that it was about power. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia with sharp eyes and a sharper suit, said, "You have grounds for emotional distress. This is a pattern of behavior." It felt like the first full breath I'd taken in 6 years. The funeral for Joan's memorial service, the big one for extended family and friends who couldn't make it to the first service, was the following Saturday. A full week after she'd died. I went alone, drove myself, wore the same black dress. Peter was there, of course, standing near the entrance looking lost among people who'd known him his whole life but were treating him like a stranger now that Joan wasn't there to smooth things over, to make excuses, to say, "You know how Peter is," with that indulgent smile. I stayed in the back, didn't sit with him, didn't acknowledge him when he kept looking at me across the room, his eyes pleading. After the service, after everyone had said their final goodbyes and the crowd had thinned, I went to my car in the parking lot. It was one of those gray Chicago days where the sky and the pavement are the same color. I had my keys out, was almost to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Fast footsteps, almost running. "Please." Peter's voice was wrecked, raw from crying or maybe from not crying enough. "Please, just listen to me." I turned around. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days, which he probably hadn't. His suit was wrinkled again, hair uncombed, eyes bloodshot. "I'll change everything," he said, the words tumbling out desperately, tripping over each other. "I'll go to therapy. Real therapy. Not just some counselor like an actual psychiatrist. I'll prove to you I can be different. I understand now. I swear I understand what I did, what I've been doing. Mom dying, Alex leaving, you leaving. I get it now. I really do." I just looked at him, waited. "I'll be on time," he continued, "to everything. I'll set alarms. I'll leave early. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll respect your time, your schedule, everything. Just please, please don't leave me. I can't lose you too." "What time did you say you'd be home the day I packed your bags?" I asked. He blinked. "What? You texted me a specific time. What time was it?" Peter's face went blank. He genuinely didn't remember. I could see him trying to recall, his eyes darting back and forth like he was searching through files in his brain, his mouth open, closed. I don't. "You said you'd be home at 6:30, I said. "You got there at 7:00. You were 30 minutes late to your own eviction. You didn't even notice. That's who you are." I got in my car, started the engine. Peter was still standing there in the parking lot, his mouth open, trying to find words that wouldn't come. I checked my rearview mirror as I pulled away. He hadn't, just standing there in his wrinkled suit, surrounded by empty parking space, finally feeling what it was like to be the one left waiting.